Hello there. Uh, my name is Dylan Davis, and I am the lead designer and I suppose lead writer for now of this here tabletop RPG that has been in development for the past year called Xenxu.world. And I decided to make this video to kind of help people get through that initial demo stage of the game. So, common practices, how to separate the different setup pieces, and explain some cards and how they work. I said cards. So, this is an interesting wrinkle to how the TTRPG format works. Instead of dice, which is the traditional normal method by which all TTRPGs operate, where you take a dice roll and you apply some value to it, like a damage or discovery or something along those lines, we have chosen to instead develop the game using a deck of tarot cards. And the reason why we chose this is because we needed a system that was fast enough to resolve RPG actions while still being a little bit more involved and strategic than the traditional dice roll. And so we called this the Zero deck, which is could be seen right here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through the entire setup, and then I'm going to play just the first couple of minutes of the actual experience of the demo. And while I do that, in the upper left corner, you can read exactly what I'm going to be reading, which is just the initial dive in. And how we're doing this is I've written a twine game that can be followed, and there are various points in which there are encounters, just like you would have in any normal TTRPG. Um, and the way that we're doing this is that this is also a GM-less, DM-less, no dungeon master game, right? So the idea is that adventure modules will be written by the community, by us, the developers, by whomever, and there will be these modules will be available, and they're scalable and they're multiplayer function. So there's a one player version where it's just you versus the story, as it were, and then there's also up to 4 players. And we have some unique little mechanics that we have working in our favor in that regard. So if you're a TTRPG player who has a couple of friends who are TTRPG players, but you don't happen to have a DM, or none of you want to DM, then you can come to this game and play this instead. The idea here, obviously, well, not obviously, but the idea here is that we would have a physical version of the game, and then we would also have a digital version of the game. And the digital version of the game would be played via app or website, and you would log in and you'd have your character stored, and so on and so forth. So this game is based on the world of Xenxu slash Mythian, which is a novel by my father, Jason Davis. And we decided to expand his world into one in which people can go in and live in. And so the kind of the ground, the foundation of the world is that there's a digital virtual reality overlay that people can go to and experience everything, right? It would be almost like a one-to-one of Earth, but it's a separated and different version of Earth, right? So, there's no New York City, there's no Taiwan, there's different locales, different countries, different places, but it is as large. Um, and so, yeah, I think that pretty much answers everything right at the beginning. And now I just want to dive into the tutorial, the instructions for how to set everything up. So if you look in the top right, or top left, excuse me, I'm in the top right corner. The top left corner, we have the beginning of game instructions. So number 1, take the Zero deck out and separate the Majors deck face cards from the Minors deck number cards. And I just now saw a typo, but that's okay. We are in the demo stage. So there are 10 cards in the Majors deck. And what this means is a lot of things over the course of the game. So we have 2 different card backs. We have Majors and Minors. This is more for the demo portion, because these will end up probably having the same back, that they can't be delineated from one another because the decks will end up mixing together in some ways. But for the purposes of this initial demo, they're just for clarity's sake, they are 2 different backs. So On this side, uh, we have our primes. We have our major arcana, as it were, if we're speaking in tarot terms. And and actually, there was one thing I wanted to cover about tarot. So the reason why we decided to go with the tarot deck, besides simple gameplay reasons, is that tarot games are traditionally various versions of trick-taking games. And what I mean by a trick-taking game is there's a target that is meant to be obtained, and there are benefits to obtaining the target. And usually this is something to do with the suit that's played, and as well the number that's played. The interesting thing, though, is that in the tarot decks, while are now considered to be divination decks, there are ways to see the future, like magic 8 balls and magic balls and various other things. Tarot decks were just playing card decks originally. They were just an alternative version of the standard 52, and tarot decks actually predate standard 52 decks, and then at some point they split off, and 52 decks went into gambling, and tarot decided to go into trick taking, as it still is in Taroki and Tarokini and various other tarot type games still in Europe, while standard 52 player went into poker and gambling and stuff. So there's actually quite a long lineage of tarot decks being used as game pieces, and I found that quite interesting as we were going through the process of designing and developing the game. But anyway, so continuing on. Deal 3, shuffle the majors deck. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and shuffle the majors deck. And it also says set the minors deck aside. Okay, so we don't need the minors deck to begin with. That makes sense. We are actually in the character creation process right now. So this game has 2 different ways that you can go, well, I suppose 3, but 2 different major ways that you can go about creating a character. You can either have a tarot reading that will help design your character, because we are in a digital reality, right? So it's your personae, your avatar, is something that you can randomize if you want, and we have a system to do it, or you can simply make a character however you want to make them. But we thought this was kind of fun, and I personally enjoy it because the idea is that you're meant to have many different characters. You're meant to have many different avatars, just like you would in any other video game. But yeah, so there's our character sheet, and these will be filled in as we go along. So deal 3 prime cards. These cards will inform you of what your virtues and your vices are. The first two cards correspond to your virtues, which you can read below, and we'll get to that in a moment. So the first card, Anomaly. So players may choose to discard a card from their hand, then instead play the top card of the deck. The reason I read this text is because I wanted to make very clear that this text is not going to apply during character creation. This will apply when we are actually playing the game. Okay, so that's why I bring that up, and I make such special note of it, because I don't want you to be looking at a text going, does it apply now? Does it not apply now? So all that matters right now is that we drew Anomaly. And Anomaly is an important card as our first card because it establishes what our initial stats will be. So in this game, we have a stat table, right? Muscle, talent, IQ, fortitude, wisdom, and charisma. And these stats align quite well with D&D. In fact, 2 of them align identically to D&D in wisdom and charisma. But muscle, you can if you've played a TTRPG before, you probably know that this is strength. Talent is dexterity. IQ is intelligence, and fortitude is constitution, right? So we use effectively the same stats, and they will ultimately be applied in various ways. However, we'll be doing it with cards rather than dice. So what does Anomaly apply to? Because it's the first card drawn, it will give a +2 to its 2 stat categories. So every major has 2 stat categories. So let's scroll down in the instructions, and let's find Anomaly. So frequency, fool, journey, charisma, polarity, shamash, siren, time form. Where's Anomaly? Did I miss it? There it is. It's literally the top one. Makes sense? It's in alphabetical order. Anomaly. Anomaly corresponds to fortitude and charisma. Therefore, constitution and charisma. So that means on this sheet, we will put 2 points into fortitude and charisma. Now, again, this is a randomized game character creation process. If you simply want to add +2/+2 to 2 stat categories you care about, you simply can do that as well. But our character will have high fortitude and high charisma. Sounds good. Let's draw the second card. Time form. Okay, time form, if we scroll down, time form corresponds to fortitude and charisma, therefore constitution and charisma. Excellent. So that means that we actually have a double up because the second card will give a +1 to the 2 categories. So we will go ahead and set these on top of each other. And we did double up, right? Because anomaly applies to fortitude as well. Yes, it applies to fortitude and charisma. Oh, wow. We actually got a great setup for our first character. That's very nice. Fortitude and charisma, therefore constitution and charisma. That's great. So we have a double up on our statistics. Wonderful. Now we're going to go into the third card. And the third card is going to be kind of a representation of our banes or our vices, right? So this is a card that will not provide us any stats, but it will provide some flavor to the concept of sort of the encounters that we're not going to be quite good at. There is a caveat though, and that will come up later in play. So journey. So we're not a particularly adventurous person, right? Because you want to be reading these cards like they are, like they're tarot, right? That's the whole idea. Okay, so we have anomaly, time form, and journey. We can note that in our virtues and vices in the experience section on the character sheet. I just realized that that's a little bit out of the way, so we'll move it. So you have all your basic stuff, your name, class, and level, and your player name, and then you fill in the statistics +1, +2. And you will gain statistics or gain power in the various statistical categories over the course of play. And then you have your experiences, which are your virtues, your vices, personality traits, ideals, and goals. And these are things that you can fill in yourself. These are things that you can have the game fill in for you if you would like. And then we also have a note section. Okay, so that means that we have kind of put together a neat little character that is focused on having a lot of strength and resolve, right? And charisma. So that can actually translate to a particular stat category that when we are more focused in on showing my my Excel sheet for a moment, because I just want to pull this up. So we can think of ourselves as almost like a soldier scientist type character that is very strong in their beliefs and resolve on the things that they know, right? And that can start to give you an idea of how character creation works in this game, how you create these personae, these avatars to embody over the course of your play experience. Okay, so now that we have all of that down, we go on with the rules, which explains basically what I just explained. With these cards drawn, you can now refer to your character sheet. The first card you drew will give you +2 points to each of the categories. The second card will give you +1 to the statistics, the statistical categories. And then we can move on to the next section. Once your personae character has been built, feel free to name them. If not, proceed to your character's given class. And that's also something that I kind of just explained, but that's okay. So you would name your character just like how you don't any way that you would like to name your character. And then you can also apply their class. And the class is simply the 2 highest stat categories, right? So if your categories are high in fortitude and charisma, you're like a scientist / soldier, something along those lines, perhaps a military scientist. And here's an example in the rules themselves. So if the majority of your points are IQ and the second most are fortitude, you will be considered a philosopher athlete, right? So I don't know any philosopher athletes off the top of my head. Maybe Bill Russell from the Boston Celtics, or Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. But you can think of it as like that type of person, right? So we have our philosopher, political scientist, mystic, athlete, agriculturalist, investigator, soldier, entertainer, and merchant. and these are all corresponding to the various major and minor statistical categories. So note down what your character's major virtues and vices are for future reference, and when you're ready, proceed to adventure start. So yeah, that's all things that you can do. So adventure start. Follow the story and make decisions where they make sense. When you are ready to proceed to a new area, simply click where you would like to go or with whom you would like to speak. If something says encounter, and that's something we're going to cover more later, this means an encounter is about to begin. Encounters are the catch-all term for fights and arguments, which are effectively the dice roll moments of any given TTRPG. If you choose an option which contains encounter, prepare to play. If you would like to know more about how to play encounters, please read this expanded section, How Encounters Work. If you prefer to wait, etc., etc., etc. So we're going to skip that part for now because I feel like it'll just be better to show it in practice. But you can read through that if you would like, and you can also refer to that in the Twine anytime you would like. This is all of this information that is currently in the Twine is going to be made available as a baseline PDF how to play. And that will be downloadable and storable, and you can read it anytime you need to. And what we're really only interested in selling are some of the more interesting website mechanics that we have set up with some of the Web3 stuff that we're working on, and also the idea of selling the decks, for example, the majors and the minors. Since they're somewhat of a proprietary system of cards. And then the other thing is the modules, right? We're interested in selling the actual stories. And so the rules is just, that's a baseline thing that people need to have in order to write modules. And that's one of the things we want to do is allow the community to write and submit modules to this world. And then this last thing is just a little band-aid that I put in because I'm not a coder. So the Twine thing is a little bit hacked in terms of how it can be played right now. But it's meant to touch on all the points of how to play Xenxu.world and how to play with the Zero. So when this demo needs to touch every single aspect of gameplay and story, I had to hack a little bit, and so that's why it says, do you have a high wisdom character? We do not in this circumstance, so we're going to go ahead and click no. But really all that does is allow for some interesting perception checks throughout the story. So we'll click no. Okay, thanks. Start. So you find yourself at the center of Zan City. The pulsating hum of futuristic energy surrounds you. Vivid neon lights dance through the air, casting a kaleidoscope of colors on the sleek reflective surfaces of the buildings. The scent of virtual street food wafts through the air, tantalizing your senses with the promise of exotic flavors. As you stroll down the bustling virtual streets, the digital chatter of avatars blends seamlessly with the distant hum of traffic. The ground beneath your feet feels strangely solid, yet you're acutely aware of the tangible nature of this hyper-realistic realm. A cool breeze, devoid of any physical source, brushes against your skin, carrying with it the illusion of a night filled with endless possibilities. The symphony of sensations in the virtual city center creates a sensory immersion, blurring the lines between reality and boundless realm of the digital frontier. But you are here to work. Engage. You've heard recently of some trouble rumbling beneath the city. There's perhaps something underfoot making its presence known. Through your contact, you've heard of a bar nearby whose patrons might have some useful information as to the whereabouts of a way into the Undercity. Then again, there's also maybe a pop-up concert to frequent beforehand. So, at this point, we can choose one of the branching paths of our adventure module, right? And what we're hoping as we kind of ramp up into full content mode is that there will be, 7 of these in any given decision tree for a particular adventure module. And as we start to outsource these more and hopefully bring in more writers to submit to game jams for, a cut of the profit of the sale of their adventure module, then there will be tons of content that people will be able to engage with. But yeah, so we have the concert or we have the bar. And I feel like I want to go to the bar. So I'm going to go to the bar. Stepping into the dive bar, you're engulfed by an atmosphere that seems to have weathered the test of time. The flickering neon signs outside cast a sporadic flashes of color through grimy windows, revealing a space dimly lit by the glow of worn-out bulbs suspended above a scarred mahogany bar. The air is thick with the scent of aged wood. stale cigarette smoke, and the faint lingering aroma of long-forgotten spills. The bar stools are mismatched, their upholstery worn thin from years of use, and the scratched surface of the bar bears witness to countless tales of joy, sorrow, and secrets exchanged in hushed tones. A jazz tune, played on an old jukebox in the corner, adds a soulful soundtrack to the scene, creating an ambiance that seems both nostalgic and desolate. The patrons, a motley crew of characters, occupy faded booths and worn leather chairs. The dartboard in one corner bears the scars of years of misaimed shots, while a pool table in the center of the room seems to sag under the weight of its own history. Dim overhead lights cast a soft glow over framed photographs, each one capturing a moment frozen in time, a testament to the transient nature of the city's underworld. Despite the grit and wear, the dive bar exudes a peculiar charm, drawing those seeking solace, respite, or simply a place to disappear into the shadows. In the dim recesses of this seedy refuge, the flickering lights, worn furnishings, and timeless jazz create an authentic sanctuary for those navigating complexities of the virtual city. Consider the bar. In your consideration, there seems to be 3 potential options. You could speak to the bartender, a woman in the corner, a burly man sitting by the dartboard, or you can leave the bar. And I think we're going to go ahead and talk to the bartender. Makes the most sense. Behind the bar, a weathered figure stands as the unofficial gatekeeper of the dive bar secrets. The bartender, an elder statesman of this digital haven, possesses a mop of unruly gray hair that complements the well-worn lines etched on his face. Despite the grizzled exterior, his eyes reflect a depth of experience, gleaming with a subtle warmth that welcomes patrons into the heart of the establishment. And there's a lot of text, and I want this to be relatively brief and for you to experience some of the text yourself, so I'm going to go ahead and skip ahead to where we can get to an encounter. I've got a lot of information about a lot of people and a lot of things. None of it comes free. None of it for the people I don't know. So, we have now reached the encounter section. And it's obviously delineated by it saying encounter here. And what encounter means is that moment when a DM says, okay, everybody, prepare your dice and your spells and so on. Let's do an initiative check. So this is that. And so, yes, the encounter is where the actual dice rolling / card playing starts. So we're going to go ahead and click that. And because it is our first encounter in playing, it's going to have the instructions for how to actually play Zero. Okay, it's now time to learn how to use the Zero deck to engage with the world of Xenxu. How to play Zero. We're going to need this guy back. To play Zero, first deal 3 cards from the Major's deck face up. Okay, so first, shuffle that up. Let's move our character sheet out of the way. And then we will deal 1 card here, Polarity. And this will act as our, remember when I said that text is considered blank until later? This is later. So the first card drawn from the Major's deck applies its text to the coming encounter. So it says, each player draws 1 card face down. Once during this encounter, each player may swap the trump card with their face down card. So with that in mind, we're going to have this down. So yeah, exactly as it states in the rules, the first major shown will apply its effect to the encounter. The second major will add its +1 to its corresponding statistics to the current encounter. So we're going to go ahead and deal the second card, and we got Anomaly again. That's great. That's excellent, because we are a high Fortitude and Charisma character, and this card applies to Fortitude and Charisma. So that means all the cards that we have, that's so funny because it was random, all the cards that we have will receive a +1 for this encounter. And then we will deal the third card. Time. That's unbelievable that we got Time Form. Okay, so we're not going to receive our our +1 because we drew Time Form as well. We will receive a -1 because this card also applies to Charisma. That's very funny. Okay, cool. Well, I mean, it makes easy math, right? So these 3 cards are going to determine the overall experience of this encounter. And now that we know that, we can begin with the second phase. After that is determined, place the top card of the Miners deck, the numbers deck, face up. 9 of Personae. Did I shuffle this deck? I hope I did. It seems very strange to draw a 9 right off the top. Okay, 6 of Waves. That makes more sense. It should be noted as well that the Miners deck is 1 through 9. It's not 2 through 10, like in a normal standard 52. It's 1 through 9. So, 6 of Waves. So that is going to be considered our trump suit. Face up to the side. This will determine the A2 or trump suit. The number of the card will also determine the severity of the encounter. That's also very important. A 1 to 3 will be considered a light encounter, and so players will draw 6 cards. However, we have a 6. If the card is a 4 through 6, it will be considered a medium encounter, and so players will draw 7 cards. So that means that we're going to draw 6 cards, and then the 7th will be face down. Right? Do I remember my own text? Oh no, it's 1 extra card, excuse me. So we will draw 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We can put all these cards in our hand. These 2. And let's go ahead and flip them. And then we need to deal 7 cards to the AI. And now you're going to get to see how that works. Now, it's a little bit easier in Tabletop Simulator for me to kind of fly through some of these things. But when you're playing against the computer, there's a very computer. When you are playing with the AI, or you and your party are playing with the AI, there's certain things that the AI gets to do to sort of cheat the game. And don't worry, you also get ways to cheat the game as well. Okay, so per the rules of Polarity, we have to each draw an extra card. Players, not the AI, just the player. So I draw an extra card face down. I have no idea what this card is. There's 1, 2, 3 waves in my hand, 1 code, 1, 2, 3 plasma in my hand. And these are considered our suits. So we have plasma, waves, code, and then there's one more that you haven't seen yet, Personae. So we don't know what's in the computer's hand, the AI, the Dungeon Master, and we don't know what that card is. Yes, so 7 to 9 is considered a heavy counter, so players will draw 8 cards. Game Master. The cards given to the AI or to the world, however you want to put it, or encounter, or however you want to imagine it, represent Xenxu's denizens, and creatures who are at odds with you and your party's goals. Given that Xenxu.World is a DM-less game, this system allows for players to still achieve a strategic experience in their encounters while not having to deal with the administrative tasks of counting for their Game Master. This comes with some interesting caveats, though, in the form of how both the AI and the players get to cheat the rules. To win a game of 0, players will attempt to achieve the most tricks during the encounter. To do this, players will have to play a card which is higher than any other number, but most importantly, higher than the AI/DM/ however you want to put it. And the card must match the A2 or trump suit. So the A2, trump, they mean the same thing. It's just a term that applies to trump. It's the French word for it. But here's the kicker. The AI will always set the trump suit for the round and must not follow the rules in this regard. And, most importantly, the AI will always set the trump suit for the round. So the AI gets to ignore your trump suit, and it gets to set the trump suit for the round every time. So, you and your party enter into an encounter with the theme of a street fight in Xan City, the major cultural hub of Xenxu. The encounter's trump is determined to be code. So in our case, it's waves, but in the example I wrote in the document, it's code. The encounter is also determined to be a light encounter. Ours is medium, but theirs is light, per the aforementioned setup rules. So each player will draw 6 cards. After each player has drawn their 6 cards, the AI will then draw its 6 cards face down so players cannot see what the encounter has in store for them. Play will always begin with the AI playing 1 card from hand face up next to the A2/trump. In this case, the AI plays 4 of waves. So we can skip this part and we can actually just do it here. So I think that's what we'll do. So we'll go ahead and give the AI hand cards a shuffle, and then we'll throw this down. So the AI played a 9 of plasma. Now, because the AI played a 9 of plasma, that means I have to play a plasma card if I have one. So it happens I have 3. And there is basically no way that I'm going to be able to beat the AI in this particular round of play, because I have a 7, I have a 5, and I have a 1. I have to play a plasma because I have to play a card that is matching the same suit as the trump. This is the bonus trump that, say, for example, I didn't have the 3 plasmas in my hand. I could play a 4 of waves because I'm allowed to play that trump suit because I don't have any plasma cards in my hand. That 4 of waves would actually beat the AI's 9 of plasma because it is of a higher trump suit. But that's not the case. We actually just have to play the cards we're given. So obviously I don't want to use my 7 here because that's a waste of value, and I don't want to use my 5 because it's also a waste of value when I have the 1. So I might as well just throw the 1 down, and if we were playing in a multiplayer game, you would then play a card from your hand. If you have a plasma, you would also have to play a plasma. Then the next person would have to, and then the next person would have to. And the AI in this circumstance wins, and so these cards will get turned face down and given to the AI, or face up, doesn't really matter. So 2 plasma cards. This represents 1 trick, and so the goal of the game is to win the majority of the tricks based on the number of cards in hand, right? So minimum, I need to win 4 to achieve victory in this encounter. Okay, so we'll go ahead and just give the AI hand a shuffle again. A 6 of Personae. Okay, well, I don't have a Personae card, so this will actually be pretty easy for me to win. I could literally win with my lowest waves card here, and I think I will do that because another caveat to the rules. So say, for example, that I don't have waves in my hand. I only have plasma and code. Because I do not have the major trump suit, the major 2, I will lose no matter what I play because this is the current trump. So the only way to beat the current trump is to beat it by beating it in number or by beating it in suit. But again, because I have a couple of cards out of the major trump, I can simply play waves and win that. And so I want to kind of slow down a little bit because I'm focused in on mechanical function and how it works. But I do want to make note that there's a flow to how we want these to feel when you're playing the game, right? So don't forget that you're talking to a bartender, and the bartender is saying, "I'm not giving up information so easily." And so what we're effectively trying to do is convince the bartender to give us some information. And so perhaps this bartender, with a very strong argument related to the essence of plasma. Not necessarily that he's arguing with us about plasma, but more the emotional grounding of what plasma is as a concept. For example, the idea of it's a very high energy argument. Just as like an example of how you and your friends can think about what is happening when you play these cards, right? Because plasma is that so-called 4th type of matter. He is coming out very high energy. So, and we kind of limp along and go, okay, but let me change the subject. So then he plays Personae, which could be some kind of appeal to some kind of logical fallacy related to ad hoc. Or poisoning the well. Like, well, you're just a dumb guy, and then you go with the flow. Hey, maybe I am a little bit dumb, but that's okay, you know. And so you want to be thinking about these various plays as actual moments in gameplay, as actual story elements as you're playing. Okay, so we're tied 1-1. Let's go ahead and give the AI deck a shuffle, and we'll reveal the next card. A 7 of waves. Ha ha! The AI thought it was going to be very clever. The question is do we actually want to throw our 9 of waves down now? Because that's almost a guaranteed win. Probably. I would assume so. I mean, maybe we could give him the code, but I do want an out on a third suit. But no, but we have to. We have to play waves, actually. We must, because the AI established a trump suit. Okay, cool. Well, then let's throw the waves down and let's just go ahead and win that trick right away. And then maybe we can try and snipe another one with the 5. So he went with the flow and then I went with the flow. Code. Okay, so definitely going to lose this one because we have to play that one of code. But that's fine. Okay. Oh, that can stay face up. All right, so it is now tied 2-2, 2-2 tricks, and we're coming down towards the end. However, here's an interesting moment. So polarity says each player draws 1 extra card face down. Once during this encounter, each player may swap the trump card, the 2, the trump, with their face down card. Do I want to risk it? Because I've got that card here, and I have plasma. If this ends up being a plasma card, let's see, there's 1, 2, 3. So there's 5, 6, 7. There's 4 plasma cards that we know about. There's 9 in the deck. And there were 14 cards drawn. I think we have to risk it. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and swap this. And then we're going to reveal. It's a Personae. Oh, dang it. Oh, dang it. Okay. That's going to be a little bit tough because that means that we lose out on our waves. But I think we just have to beat them on numbers. Okay. Code. 8 of code. Ooh, we're going to lose this one for sure. Okay, so we'll go ahead and throw down. We'll throw it on the plasma, and he'll go ahead and take that. So he's 3 to R2. 6 of plasma. Oh, I'm so glad we played the 5 of plasma. Oh, jeez. Wow. Okay, now the arguments are getting really heated up here. Like he was at a 6. I mean, he calmed down from his original 9, but then he went down to a 6, and I'm up to a 7. Okay. Let's see who's going to win this. A 9 of code. Oh, he's got it. He's got it for sure. Okay. That's fine. So it's 4-3. So we lose the encounter, but that's not the end of the world because there's actually a number of ways to deal with this. So when we get down to the bottom here, we have determining the outcome. In most zero encounters, there are 4 possible outcomes. Decisive victory, close victory, decisive defeat, close defeat. This is determined by the degree to which either the party or AI has achieved a majority. In the previous example that we're skipping because I'm doing the example this time. And so there is a table that is supposed to show that, and it might be in a different section of the book. I believe so. Let's see. How do I want to do this? Yeah, I didn't have that in there because it's actually earlier. But I do want to show it. Let's pause for a moment. Okay. So there are 3 different ways that there are 4 different ways that the encounter can be determined. And this is like a threshold by the number of tricks that you need to win in order to determine which one you're going to get. So in the case of this of this particular game, we have the decisive victory, the Pyrrhic victory, which is close victory, decisive loss, and Pyrrhic loss, close loss. And because it is a medium encounter, 7 playable cards, that means that it is on a 1 to 2 tricks, it is decisive defeat. So we got 3 tricks. So we did not get a decisive defeat. On a 3 to 4 tricks is a close defeat. And so because it was a close defeat, that means that we can go ahead and click the Pyrrhic loss or close loss here, and that will give us some information. Pyrrhic loss. Let's see. What does the bartender have to say? Look, the bartender says, as much as I like you, you are barking down the wrong alleys. Personae can go missing in Xenxu, despite what the world otherwise would tell you. There's money to be made here, and when there's money to be made, there's illicit ways to make it. You consider him carefully. You make a good point, though. Bringing some of this to light can't hurt. The bartender leans against his side of the bar, beckoning you close. You didn't hear this from me, he says, but I heard there's something brewing on Mood Street. Don't go mouthing off there like you know something, but if it were me, that's where I'd start. You thank the bartender. And now we can go into the optional mini encounter, or we can move on. And we're going to move on. Okay, so we've got some information. Despite our close defeat, we got some information about where we need to go next, which is some place called Mood Street. Now we can either continue on, try to extract some more information out of other NPCs. We could go back out to the concert and see if we can discover something there, or we can simply try to find Mood Street. And that's all just determined by the way that the twine is written, the way that the interactive fiction is written, right? And so these kind of modular trees that can branch out in any number of directions based on the performance of the actual in-game moments of Zero are what just make this entire game function and run, and it's really fun to watch it happen. So yeah, that's an entire encounter, right? And if you're familiar with TTRPGs, that's actually quite fast comparatively, because it's not simply turns that are multiple rolls and multiple things. It is each card represents an entire section of the experience. Now, it is important to note, though, that this is the demo version of a character that is very new, right? I have no initial abilities. I haven't leveled up yet. I haven't added any points to my statistics, nothing like that, right? So you can expect, as the game continues to progress and grow, and as the book comes into shape and we start adding more and more information to the classes and so on, that there will be lots of things you can do in these different types of encounters, right? So for example, one of the things that we want is, as you level up, you'll be able to add mulligans to your initial hand, right? And so you can take one card from your hand, put it on the bottom of the deck, and redraw the card. There will be various abilities and spells that you can use, like if you can turn any 4 into an 8, or something along those lines. Another spell that we would like to have access to is something like a charm spell for high charisma characters, where if you're a personae that has a high charisma statistic, you can, before an encounter, you can actually engage the encounter by charming first, which would apply debuffs to whatever you're about to go into, right? To the opponent, to the world, to the AI deck, and so on and so forth. But there's a lot of them planned and a lot of them written, and as the game grows, so too will all of that stuff as well. So hopefully this is a pretty good indication of how to play Zero and Xenxu together. And yeah, I think that'll be all from me. If there's any questions, you can obviously leave them in the comments below. And yeah, have fun. Happy gaming, as it were.